the Know Your Gear podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast for February 27th. Why am I yelling in the mic? February 27th, 2026. I hope you guys all had a fantastic week and are ready for a new episode of the show so we can go over things you want to talk about, things you're interested in, maybe things you're not interested in. We have a lot. Let's get into quick announcements. They're going to be fast. So quick announcements. First of all, if you're here live, there's no ads while you're playing live. I want to thank specifically the patrons and the channel members for making that possible. They are the sponsors of the show for the last 8 years. And why that's important is that, although we don't run ads live during the show, that may not seem like a big deal. But so you know, it equates to actually a pretty good sum of money. We've recently learned the hard way. So thank them for that. Also, I want to thank the moderators for helping keep this show going through each week, making sure comments get sent to me, questions sent to me, topics are sent to me, links are given to you, information is not missed. And of course, if there's any issues in the chat, they're here to help as well. So everybody can have a good time because that's what this is all about. And that's pretty much the announcements, right? That's it. And then if you want to learn more about becoming a patron, you can click the link down below and learn about becoming a patron if you are so inclined. Okay, what do we got? We got a lot of things. Some crazy news to talk about, and maybe we'll just jump right into that first. I think maybe that's what we'll do. Let's see. Let's go into it. So there's some stuff that's going to come up, and I thought we'd talk about it. Some viewers reached out to me, but I had actually already talked to a couple employees that are friends of mine, and they kind of mentioned it too. And so let's start with that. So we've been talking about Fender for a lot of years on the channel, especially on the podcast. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Fender. You're a huge fan of Fender. They're the largest guitar company in the world. So obviously we're all fans. There's some stuff going on that I think it's worth talking about. And I'm going to give some opinions on it once I give it. So the first thing is, Fender looks like they're about to do another round of layoffs again. And this is I think this is all circumstantially bad for a lot of reasons. Obviously, anytime we talk about layoffs, we're talking about people losing their jobs, things that they pay their bills with, they feed their families with. This is their livelihoods. It's always a sad topic, and it's always a delicate topic. I just hope you understand. So when you're making comments, please keep in mind that these are people that are affected by this, not just whimsical comments to our will. The layoffs, I understand, are going to be in April. So now things could change. I don't know if it's 100% going to happen, and there's no way around that. Let me go to it and share it with you. So I talked to an employee who said that they were kind of told, or they kind of know. So I'm hoping all the employees have been told. Let's go to the webs, shall we? The websites. Okay, so this is a website called the Warn Tracker. It tells you of potential companies that have over 100 employees that are going to be laying off. And on here, it says, I'm just giving you the information, that Fender is planning to do a layoff in April 7th, 2026. And it looks like let's move this way, it looks like they're going to do about 100 to 250 people laid off. And this looks like it's listed as a permanent layoff. Okay, so that's just where I'm giving you that. There's a link down below for those that want to check that out if you're curious where I was getting the information. Now, like I said, I was given the information first from an employee that told me, and they don't know if they're included in this or not. So you understand this is why it's a delicate subject. Why are we talking about it? Well, it's guitar news for sure, but that's not why we're actually talking about it. We're talking about a couple things. Now, the one thing I want to tell you is I don't know if I just don't know, okay? So I'm just going to tell you. I don't know if the new CEO, Bud Cole, is coming in and this is him cleaning house. I don't know if this was decided before they got the new CEO. But either way, we know Fender's got a new CEO. I personally think, with no information more than what I just told you and what I know for here, it could be he just walked into this and this was already kind of something that had to happen, but who knows? But, you know, it's an interesting thing. For the last 5 years on this podcast, if there was one continuous thing we talk about, there's two, actually. Let's talk about two continuous things we talk about. Gibson, always in the news for some kind of lawsuit, and Fender, always in the news for some kind of quality issue. And I just don't think that Fender, in my opinion, and that's what I'm sticking to for the last 5 years, Fender has let the quality drop. It happened during COVID. It got really bad in COVID, and I don't think it's come back. In fact, many friends of mine, some Fender dealers, some people at the guitar centers, have consistently told me, which is more important, that they don't talk to each other and they're in different parts of the country, to have the same stories like the Fender quality. They're constantly dealing with a lack of Fender quality in the Fender guitars and the products. Somebody mentioned their price hikes. Their price hikes are astronomically crazy. And now we can talk about some of the economical issues that are causing price hikes, but I've said this during COVID. Fender was the first, always, in my opinion, to jack up the prices. As soon as there was like, oh, there's a supply issue, oh, prices skyrocket. Oh, wait, there might be a supply issue, prices skyrocket. Oh, wait, demand's high, price skyrocket. Oh, wait, demand might be high, price skyrocket. You know, I was looking, I'm going on a sidetrack here. I was looking at something the other day, and it just literally took the breath out of my chest. I'm going to show you something. If you remember, I feel like now, in their defense, it could be 2 years now, okay? It feels like it was less than a year or a year-ish that I mentioned that I was in the market for a Fender Tone Master amp, and I just didn't want to spend $1,500 for a digital type product, you know, when you can get a used Fender Bassman for $1,000. Now, what I'm going to show you is that the Fender Bassman right here is $2,199, $2,200. By the way, you can still find them all day for $1,000. So you know, I just got one for $1,000, $1,050, shipped, done, in mint condition. So that's half of new. Now, what's the Tone Master digital version going for? $1,839. And what's funny is I would have swore I saw one that's $1,900. I wonder if I go into this, if it's one of those tricks. Oh, look, I was right. I was losing my mind. I was in here 2 days ago. When I made the purchase for the real one, I was like, let me look at the Tone Master again. And I was like, $2,000. No way. Look at that. Already dropped it. $160. Okay, so obviously no one's paying $2,000 for the Tone Master stuff. I think this is a bad idea. This, you know, and I understand prices are not always to the discretion of the company. You know, like I said, we have external prices problems, right? We have labor costs, you have regulation, you have taxes, you have tariffs, you name it. It's coming at everybody in all directions. Like I said, you know, my stance on the political sense is that there's always a nightmare. There's always a catastrophe. There's always a reason why something's going to happen. And it seems like it's more and more and often now. And it's just, and the pick says $1,000 where? First of all, you could go, let's take a look. Let's take a look to see where you can find one right now for a good price. Let's, this wasn't going to be about Fender Bassmans, but I feel like now it has to be a little bit. Fender Bassman 59. Okay, go here. Oh, look at this right here. First one I pull up. Look at that. There's a used one at Guitar Center for $1,000. Here's a used one at Guitar Center for $1,200. Here's a used one at Guitar Center for $13. Here's another used one at Guitar Center for $1,029 in great condition listed. Here's one at Guitar Center for $12. So here's one for $15, but that's a little bit more. Here's another one for $1,099. This is without even trying, guys. I just did this in minutes. So not even trying. You can find one for $1,000. So you know, I think there's even a better deal. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm going to try this real quick. Sadly enough, if it's sold, there's no history, so there's no way to show you. But let me try Fender Bassman 59. Okay, so I found one on my local Craigslist for $1,250 here. This is in Tucson. But hold on, I just want to make sure. And so here, I'll open it so you guys see it. This one's in Tucson for $1,250. But so you know, just a couple, I think a week ago, I can't remember, a week or 2 weeks ago, there was one for $750. I wasn't interested in it. I was thinking about it, and then I talked myself out of it, and then it disappeared. So I didn't know if he pulled it or if it's not there anymore. Let's just see if I can find it real quick, like if it still exists. It doesn't. So anyways, yeah, that wasn't hard. Searching for a deal when you can find something for half off immediately is not. It doesn't mean it's hard to find. So back to that. What does that mean? I mean, obviously, somebody's saying basically, this is all to allude that somebody mentioned in the comments right now that Fenders has hiked their prices up too high. I think that's part of their problem too. I think they've been too eager to keep hiking prices up. But they have a plan. And when I say they have a plan, I have a theory that they have a plan. Let me tell you, if you guys have been on Instagram or YouTube recently or Facebook or TikTok, you have probably seen somebody saying something like, "Hey everyone, Fender sent me an exclusive model. Hey everyone, I just got the exclusive Fender model. Hey everyone, I just got a Fender only available on Fender.com. Hey everyone, I just got a model only sold at Fender.com." You're seeing a lot of that. In fact, I shared it with my patrons. I was able to find half a dozen, 6, which isn't a whole lot, but very quickly, by the way, I did that in like 10 minutes, just like I was looking for basements. And then, of course, I was approached by Fender to basically do a marketing push, right? In other words, hey, like highlight a product and talk about product. And of course, send people not to the local Fender dealer, not to Sweetwater, our Guitar Center, or anywhere you choose to purchase. The money only comes, and this is the important part, if I send you to Fender.com. I got to send you to Fender.com. I get a piece of the sale. Now, that's an affiliate link, and as you know, like all influencers, I do affiliate links. However, I've been clear about this. The only real exclusive affiliate link I generally will push is Stu Mac, and the reason being, I use their tools and have for over 20 years, and as you guys know, they were in my videos, and also in true transparency, I helped Stu Mac set up that affiliate link so that they don't have to pay me to make videos, because that's how it usually works, right? They pay you to do a video. My logic was, let me do whatever video I want, and I'll put my links to the tools I use, and if they buy something that helps my channel, that's where I was motivated to do that. But mostly, if I'm promoting an affiliate link, it's usually to Sweetwater or Guitar Center or someone, or Reverb, where you make the choice of what you want to buy there. I don't really have to worry about you have to buy the thing I'm specifically pushing, right? The reason why that's important to me, this is a side note, is I learned this the hard way when I do the deep dives. If I do a deep dive and all of a sudden I find a problem in the guitar, the amount of guitars that would convert for sale is dramatically affected. And you can imagine that could mean thousands of dollars in a period of time, over time for me. So in any content creator. So what happens is it really kills your motivation to find the flaws in the guitars when that is specifically connected. It's not like a company telling me to not say anything negative. It's specifically connected to my sales. For example, I constantly, as you know, I buy a guitar and then I find a flaw in it. When I go to resell that guitar, you can imagine it really tanks the value. No one's really super excited to buy a guitar that was on Phil McKnight's channel that he didn't give 100%, this is the greatest guitar ever. No one really wants to own that. Usually if somebody wants to buy a guitar, it's because that was in a video so they can show their friends like, hey, this was on this channel and look at how well it did and look how much praise this person gave it. So that's why we don't generally sell a lot of guitars straight to the public. I just churn them off to, local dealers or the Guitar Center and just take the hit so I don't have to think about that when I'm making the video. I don't have to think like, oh, if I point out this other defect among the other 3 defects, now this guitar is really worth a lot less. I don't want to think like that. So my point is not to talk about this. I'm just talking about I think the strategy here is clear, in my opinion. Again, I got to say my opinion, that Fender's definitely not only selling direct, this seems to be an active movement to go direct. And it's probably to not so much, so you guys know, so not so much in an evil, like to circumvent their dealers in the, hey, screw the dealers, let's keep all the money. I think it's because the dealers aren't moving enough product and they're in a bad way because I think they have like $186 million in debt. That could be a factor of that. But the biggest factor is, they got to move product. And so if the small dealers can't move it, the influencers can. I want to let you know, this is something I had private discussion with my wife, and I was confirming some numbers with her. As you know, I was a Fender dealer for over a decade in a store in Arizona, and my store was one of the premium Fender dealers. Now, that doesn't mean against Guitar Center. I can't compete with that as a small dealer, but I'm talking about when you take the other Fender dealers in the state of Arizona, we were always top 1 or 2 in the state. And there's about 10, I think. So we were always number 1, number 2 in sales. Without a doubt, as a YouTube personality having a channel, just looking at affiliate clicks for what you guys buy at Sweetwater and Guitar Center, Reverb, you name it, I sell way more per year here than I ever did at the store as a dealer. And I would assume, assuming that a lot of influencers are flipping gear to us diehard gear freaks more so than some of the dealers are now, or is at the rate. And think about this, they're cutting in the influencer at 10%, but the dealer has to get at least a 30 to 40% margin. You know, it could be a way for Fender to really see an opening in the problem, in other words, and just go for that. And I could be coincidence. I find it, you see them kind of saying, hey, we have to lay off some people, make some changes. And then also the direct marketing got really aggressive. They've been doing direct marketing for years. I've been a Fender affiliate for, I feel like a year or two now, maybe longer. And this is the most aggressive I've seen it. I don't know. And so, unfortunately, when I sign up for these things, because it's through your affiliate networks, I don't know if in that rhetoric of contract, if there's any kind of disclosure laws, like like they put in there, I can't disclose. So I'm not going to disclose any of the personal information that they send to me about those things. Just so you guys know, I can try and figure it out, but I would bet I don't want to read 20 pages just to tell you guys, oh, this is what they said in my last email. So I just want to let you know, I'm kind of not talking about that particular, but what they did send me does seem to line up with what I'm seeing out there and what you could obviously see out there, which is a ton of influencers really pushing Fender.com. And the idea that I think it's because they see that as either the next way to get revenue coming, or they're trying to fix a problem where there's revenue not coming from their dealer networks. And this really is disappointing for one reason only. I really think, and I what do I know? Just like a lot of you guys, we're all just talking here on a Friday. I really feel like if they could just focus on the quality, just focus on the quality. And so, I can kind of tell you this. I can tell you that for sure they know they have a quality issue because I was given privileged information internally from employees who are no longer there. So, and I don't mean they left and they're like disgruntled. I mean, just they're no longer there now. So because they're no longer there now, I don't know that, if they figure out who told me, I don't think there'll be any repercussion to them, that they were in meetings just within the last 2 years with executive team or their management at Fender discussing how bad the quality assurance reject rates were and how much money it was costing Fender. And I think we even talked about that. You'd have to go back in a back episode. So like I said, my point is Fender knows that there is some quality issues. And I think last year, if you think about last year, this time last year, January or February, Fenderary. We'll call January, February, Fenderary from now on. In Fenderary of 2025, I independently bought some of the new Fender made in Cortex factory standards. And at that time, like I said, they were fine. I just wasn't excited about them. It didn't prompt me to get any, wow, this is what a great future in mind. But again, it felt like, Fender just trying to, constantly cash in on an idea and not just focus on, hey, you could probably get somebody to pay $800 for a made in Mexico Telecaster if it didn't have issues. Much easier than just getting them a $600 one made in Indonesia or China. And that's just my opinion. Some of you are going to say no, because some of you are definitely focused on the price always. And it's like, oh, I know, I just want to be cheap and cheap. But I think sometimes you want it cheap is not an affordability issue, although that is a factor. Some of us, hey, I don't got the money to pay $1,000 for a guitar, so that's just an affordability factor. But I think a lot of people are just, it's not worth that kind of money. So if they make a lesser expensive option, I don't mind putting in the work to fix the flaws that I'm probably anticipating that one's going to have, because the other one above it's going to have too. And we had just talked about in the last few weeks, and I don't remember the episode. I apologize if one of you put it in the comments which one it was, where I was just talking about the fact that when I was mentioning Reverend guitars and how I could blindly almost recommend a Reverend guitar because they don't make cheap junk, and they don't make any $3,000 guitars. Like, they just make this, right in the middle meat and potatoes guitar. And yeah, they're not cheap or super affordable, but they're really good. And I used to talk about Fender Mexico the way I now currently talk about Reverend. Like, hey, Phil, I want to get a guitar that's really good. I can't spend a lot of money, but I'm not looking for the cheapest, Amazon deal out there. And I could say, in fact, I did on this show for at least 5 years, I would say, made Mexico Strat. How many times did somebody say, hey, would you pick a John Mayer Silver Sky SE or Mexican Strat? Hey, Phil, would you pick a Schecter or Mexican Strat? And every time, Mexican Strat, Mexican Strat, Mexican Telly. And now I'm like, it's hit or miss with Fender every time. Hit or miss. And so it'll be interesting to see how these changes affect. I'm hoping that they, that the people that are affected by this, I hope they find new jobs soon or they figure out something. But I thought I would just share the news and talk about this because, again, it's something we've talked about. We just keep talking about it, and I feel like the situation doesn't get better, but yet Fender just keeps having issues. So I don't know. David says, hey, should I buy a Charvel HH or Reverend? Here's the funny thing about this, and I don't know if it's a joke or being serious, but let me answer it in the craziest way that's going to really articulate my point. My Charvel DK24 is one of my favorite guitars. It's made in Mexico. I like it so much that, when I was paring down my collection of guitars, as you do, it kind of plumes up and you're like, okay, I'm not playing all these, let's pare it down. I had to choose for the type of guitar that guitar is between my Music Man John Petrucci's 6-string guitar at USA or that, and I picked the Charvel over that, and I kept the Charvel and I got rid of the Petrucci because as great as that guitar was, the Music Man, I was like, I just think the Charvel is just as good. I like I put some DiMarzios in it, and even though it had Duncans, and I like it, but I gotta tell you, that guitar did not come out of the box that way. It had fret sprout twice, even though it had a roasted maple neck. It had a couple other issues. I had to remove one of the string trees because if you go look at that video, I told you guys that it just would not stay in tune. So I had to remove one of the string trees, make some adjustments, and then ultimately change a couple components in that guitar. That guitar at the time, I don't know what they go for now, a DK24 Charvel made in Mexico, at the time was $1,000. And and that was, I think I've had it for, since 2020 probably, or 2021, at least 5 years, because Paint Huffer painted it, and I right after we did the Great Guitar Build-Off, and we had him paint a guitar for us. So basically what I'm trying to say is I love my Charvel. I'd recommend it, but I'm going to recommend it much differently than the Reverend. I've had my hands on a dozen Reverend guitars on the channel, off the channel, friends guitars, much fewer issues consistently than I've seen with Charvels. So, and that doesn't mean one's better than the other when it comes to the guitar that you want, how it sounds. We're talking about just out of the box quality. Out of the box quality. It's I would give that to the Reverend. Okay. Let's see. Any comments or questions specifically about this topic right now, and then we'll move on. Steve says, hey, only Fender offers the dishwashing sponge. I know. You would think that the dishwashing sponges would have saved Fender financially with that decision, but unfortunately it did not. It's funny. Some of you guys are talking about Princeton sponges. And then again, let's see. You guys are really, really talking about the sponges a lot. I would say, although the joke of the sponges is funny because it's just a weird, goofy product, but here's a good one. I was going to say, really, I think the quality issue is where they focus on. Salty Starfish says, hey, do you think there's a quality difference in Indonesia versus Mexico made Fenders? Not really. I think I think I've been to both factories, although it's been a while since I've been to the Mexico factory. So I've been to obviously the Indonesian factory is recent, within less than a year ago. So I have probably dated, information mentally from the Made in Mexico factory. And I'm a big proponent for the Made in Mexico factory. I think it's like I said, I think it was one of the best ideas Fender ever did. You have a factory. The Made in Mexico factory, not only as a dealer, but as a Fender fanatic, was one of the greatest things they ever did in my opinion, because it did a bunch of things. I was going to say three. I'm just going to make up numbers, but whatever the number is, I'll just go through the things. First, it allowed them to be close to the manufacturer. So you go, they're in Ensenada. Ensenada is just an hour, 2 hours away from, I'm sorry, they're not in Ensenada. They're in Corona. And Corona is only a few hours away from Ensenada. So they can go to that factory. Indonesia, as you know, it took me 36 hours to get there from 30 hours in total travel from LAX. Okay. So Fender's got to travel 30 hours to get to the Cortec factory. It's not an easy trip because it's not like a direct flight to Indonesia from LA. So you can understand it gives them more control that way. Secondly, you have a great workforce with a great work ethic and skill set, because 1 in 5 people in Mexico play guitar. So you have a likelihood that people in the guitar factory actually play guitar. Trust me, very few people in the Indonesian factory play guitar. Is that a factor? Do you need that? Well, I've had people like Paul Reed Smith and Jeff Kiesel mention that the majority of their workers are guitar players, and that's not necessarily because obviously Leo Fender didn't play guitar, but workers who play guitar, they have our passion, and therefore they look at the things a little bit differently than just a quality of work as a pass-fail system. The other thing is it allows Fender to pull the trigger a lot closer to when they need things. So for instance, let's say they need inventory they're trying to figure out fourth quarter needs or whatever, across the world, you got to make decisions, not only months in advance, sometimes years in advance. Mexico allows them to make that decision a lot, closer to when they they need it. They can pull that trigger a little closer. They also don't have to worry about anybody else making any other products in the Mexico factory. So the Mexico factory only makes Fender products, besides, of course, it makes Charvel, EVH, which are all Fender branded products, and Jackson. So it's all Fender products, okay? Where Cortec, although Fender has its own building, and so does Squier, there is some cross-contamination, and more importantly, you are kind of giving your sauce away to a third party. Cortec now knows whatever Fender teaches them, and as you've seen, Cortec is adapting as a factory over the years. It's becoming, instead of the place where manufacturers go and teach them how to make a thing that they want, they're going there because they already know how to make a thing better than they know how to make, And so I love, so basically that's my way of saying I think Mexico Fender is a better decision for Fender. I think it's a better decision for us. It's a better decision economically for us. I mean, some people say I'd rather buy USA. Me too. Heck, I think is every guitar here today a made in USA guitar? Okay, no, one. So I didn't plan that. I have one guitar. That Gretsch is made in Japan. Every guitar on this wall that you see behind you. Oh, Ireland. Let's not forget Ireland, guys. Okay, so Ireland, Japan, and the rest is made in USA. So, obviously I'm a fan of USA-made products. I'm an American, and I'm proud of my country and the workforce that I'm part of. But that being said, I like that, when we can work with Canada, I like when we can work with Mexico. They're our neighbors. There's some benefits to us on a lot of fronts, just like there is to them. So I kind of really like that. I think Cortec makes a great guitar, but I also think that part of the thing about Cortec is they're not going to allow Cortec to make a better guitar than Mexico. And I'd like to pick on them for that, but when I was there, I didn't really see anything different in anybody else's philosophy. As we truly know now, Cortec is not making everybody's guitars at the best ability Cortec can make a guitar. They're making the guitars based on the price points that these manufacturers or these brands want the guitar to be sold at. And that's just how it goes. But I like the Indonesian-made standard Tele Strats and basses. They're fine, but I would still rather buy made in Mexico personally if it was me. And I'm friends with the Cortec guys. Think about that. I'm really close friends with them. Okay, so let's go ahead. I think we got it, unless I missed anything, anyone's comment. And then, okay, we'll end on this because it's the last Fender type subject I see. It says, this is from Marty B. Marty B says, Phil, what's your overall impressions when comparing Tone Master amps to their tube component parts? The Tone Master amps are very good. I actually call them decadent. I feel kind of like, you know, when you look at, right now I have a Boss Katana behind me. It's funny, you can't see it. It's not funny, there's no light hitting it that way. But anyways, I love the Boss Katana. I love those kind of amps too, you know, right? The Roland cubes, all that stuff. In my personal opinion, I think the Tone Master series is a level above all of those. But they're so much more expensive. Like I keep hearing it in my voice. I can't get to $1,500 on these things. I can't get to $1,200 on these things. Now, I don't have a need for that. See, a need really kind of helps you focus in your price point, right? A lot of people don't understand. It's like when they look at something and they go, oh, I don't think it's worth $300. And I'm like, well, you also don't need it, right? So let me give you an example of a need. I'm not hauling my 65 Deluxe Reverb to a gig 3 times a week. Maybe I'd have a different opinion if I was, where not only would if I got the Tone Master 65 Deluxe, it would be a little lighter. Also, I could direct into the PA with an IR. That would definitely change my opinion of how much it costs versus how much my amp costs. I really wanted a Tone Master Bassman 59 for a couple reasons. One, the Bassman 59 Tone Master has reverb, something I have to add to the Bassman. It also is a little lighter, which is always something nice because the Bassman's actually pretty heavy because of the 4 speakers. The Bassman also has like an attenuation thing, so you can crank it. It's great. My problem with it, and why I don't value it for not only $1,500, but much less the now $2,000 point, is I could never get my hands on to try one. And so without trying it, I've had an experience with the Tone Masters, all of them, one experience with all of them that I thought was a little negative that I didn't like, which is they don't like all pedals. See, a Fender amp to me is the ultimate pedal platform amp. You know, I'm sure there's 2 Rocks and there's all kinds of great amps out there too, but I'm just saying, when I think of Fender amps, like that's what you do with them, right? You put your pedals in front of them. You know, they have this ultimate clean, they sound great, you know, they're relatively loud and not super heavy. It's not like you're taking a half stack, but then you run your pedals and all pedals just sound really good for the most part. Where the Tone Master series, I want to say they're bitchy. Like all of a sudden, one pedal sounds like I could A/B a Tone Master 65. I'm just picking on the 65, and the Princeton can be the same too. You Tone Master 65 against the 65 Deluxe Reverb. I could pick 10 pedals if I wanted to for this challenge. And I could pick 5 where they sound exactly the same through both amps, and you go, oh yeah, so they're the same. And the next 5, in every case, the Tone Master sounded fizzier and worse. It's just something it doesn't like about pedals. Fuzz pedals specifically, I didn't have a whole lot of luck with on the Tone Master series. But if you're not using fuzz pedals, who cares, right? I mean, it's not something that affects it. Why do I think that happens? I don't know. I've already, when I did my A-Bing, trying to decide if I was which one I was keeping, because that's what happened. I bought a Tone Master, as you guys know. I did a video. I have a 65 Deluxe Reverb. I A-B'd them, and eventually decided I liked the 65 Deluxe Reverb. And I even said, and I think somewhere in this on the podcast as well, if I didn't already have a 65 Deluxe Reverb, a real one, I probably would have been happy with the Tone Master. But I'm not getting rid of the real one for the Tone Master. Just for saving a little weight and then having a direct out. The attenuation was not super important to me, as I don't really crank them for overdrive. I'm not running my Fenders for overdrive. So that's my thoughts on that. Although I've heard rumors that the new Hyperdrive EVH Tone Master Essentially Series amp sounds really good, but I again couldn't find one physically to try. The EVH guys reached out. I reached out back to them. I got ghosted. That was the end of that. So I'll still try and find one, and I'll get one on the channel if I can. Let's see. Steve says the pedal show speaks of this. If I recall, when this pedal show did a video on the Tone Master, they literally came to the same conclusion I did, which is they liked it, but of the 2, they definitely wanted the real thing, whatever that means, the real tubes, and they got real tubes. But like I said, Tone Master stuff, I think it's good, and I think I don't think it needs to be cheap. I just think it's priced just a little too high. And the reason why, not because of an affordability aspect, it's because to me, it's not a forever product. And so it's a lot easier to justify some products like a guitar, certain guitars, certain amps, because you know you're going to probably have them until you're sick of them. And so then you'll sell them off. Tone Master, digital products, it's not even about them breaking. A lot of people worry like, oh, when they break, they're going to break. Digital products just don't hold value. Perfect example is I've recently decided, which I have not announced to you guys officially, that I decided I'm not using my Kemper anymore. And guess what? If anyone's interested in a Kemper, you should reach out to me, direct message me. You're going to get a Kemper at a great deal. I have tried to sell the Kemper. I tried to give it away, not literally like donate it, but sell it for dirt cheap. And everywhere I went, and which is, I'm going to say everywhere, it's not like 100 places, like 4 places. Everywhere I went had way too many Kempers, and they couldn't take any more Kempers used. It was like, it actually had a flashback to my teenage years when we had, we still do, we had Zia Records here in the Arizona where you trade records and tapes. When I would go and try to trade in certain CDs, and it was like, and they're like, yeah, we have 13 of those. We're not taking those on trade right now because everybody had decided they're done with that band. That's what it was like having. So in fact, I did some trading yesterday at Guitar Center, and I took a pile of stuff, another pile of stuff, and the only thing they didn't keep, or the only thing they didn't take was my Kemper. And I even sarcastically said, they said, just so you know, they said, Phil, we don't want your Kemper. I go, okay. And they go, and even if we did right now, we would probably offer you a low price and insult you. And I said, don't even care. Whatever price you throw, I'd probably take it. And they're like, nah. I'm like, okay. So this is my point. Why is everybody dumping their Kempers right now? I have no idea. I know why I'm doing it, but I'm not announcing it. Why? Because I've switched to another product after having the Kemper for about 5 years, and I really like my Kemper. I've not fallen out of love with it. For, again, work, purpose, flow purposes, I found something that work, purpose, flow is better for me. I can't even argue sounds better. Might even technically not sound as good to me, or at least it sounds as good as the Kemper, but workflow is faster and easier and more practical for my needs. Okay, so let's do the next thing. What do we got? Looking at the clock, make sure we're on time. Let me grab a couple of these, if you don't mind. And that gives me a little second to sip some water. Antique Rocker says, hey, I purchased a Beat Buddy Mini 2 instead of the Beat Buddy, $160 versus $500. What am I missing by not getting the big boy? Do you use the foot switch? So I use the foot switch. I have the external foot switch. I had the Beat Buddy Mini. I liked it. So, totally fine. What are you missing? I don't know. I don't use 90% of the functions on the Beat Buddy 2, but I like the way it sounds. I think to my ear, the Beat Buddy, the new Beat Buddy, the one I have, sounds better than the old Beat Buddies. I think they are some rhetoric in their marketing about how they resampled and stuff. It just sounds a little better. But is it worth the $160 versus the $500? I don't know. Not that I, like I said, I know of. I just know I like the new Beat Buddy. I use it on the regular, and that's about the end of that. But Beat Buddy Mini, I think, especially you paid $160, that's great. I sometimes see them used for $99 too. Same thing. $160, $99. I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you made a bad decision. How about that, Antique Rocker? I don't think you made a bad decision. I think if anything, maybe stick with the Beat Buddy Mini for a while, and then if you start feeling like, wow, I wish it had more features, then maybe start looking into the features of the newer model to see what it adds. Chris says, can you recommend a good humidifier? I tried the Varnado and it doesn't get above 30%. Are you talking about like to place into a guitar? So as I've said, I really don't use a whole lot of humidification. We use some humidifiers here only when, like right now, humidity is 49%. So I'm okay with that. I don't keep optimum humidity in the house or even around the guitars. I don't optimize to 50 or 60%. What I do is I told you guys, in my experience, if your humidity goes below, I'm going to say 40%. So once you're in the 30s, like if a couple weeks ago, the shop was at 32 and I was like, oh no. And I knew it. and I knew something was going to happen, and it did. One of my guitars fret sprouted, and I was like, I knew it was going to, just because I'd left it in there for 2 days. It was too dry, a little too dry. So I don't really have a whole lot of recommendations for that. Humidifiers, I like the D'Addario ones, and I like the, the Music Nomad ones are pretty good. And then for a unit, I have a Homec, it's one you buy at Costco. That's what I use. Some people say it's not the one you should use. I've been using it for years. I have no problems. So, Hoff Custom Guitars says, hey, new amp day. All right, what'd you get? He says, I just got the High Tone Custom Low Watt Combo. I've never heard of it. What are your thoughts on the high watts? Oh, so high watt, like the brand High Watt. So it's the High Tone Custom Low Watt Combo. But is that a high watt? Thoughts on high watt and high watt style amps. I have played 1 or 2 high watt amps. I know very little about them. When I said I played them, they would come in, like one came in trade, or maybe 2 came in trade, or I've found them in a music store here and there, and I plugged in. Generally understanding, at least I think that they're like a Marshall type product, or they're a Marshall variant, right? You know, in my life, amps have really come down to like the 3 grandfathers of amps for me. So there's Marshalls, so everything's like a Marshall. So like there's a Friedman, right? There's, in my opinion, like a high watt. Obviously, there's the Royalist from Tone King. There's the Badger. You know, some of the Sur amps. Some of the Bogner amps are Marshall-esque. Just a bunch of Marshall-esque amps. And then the next is the Fender amps. So then there's all the Fenders, and then all the Fender variants, right? And then it gets confusing because sometimes I feel like some amp builders are kind of like pickup builders where they just kind of throw all this marketing jargon that confuses me, like voice, like a Vox and this and this. And I'm like, I don't know. And then even though Vox should be the third, right? So there's Vox and then all the Vox variants. So then you would have like Matchless or Bad Cat. But then again, they all start shooting off different directions right after a while. Like Bad Cat's got stuff that sounds like a Marshall, and they got stuff that sounds like a Vox. So those are the 3, but then sometimes I always go the Mesa Boogie, and I don't really consider to me the Soldano and the EVH and all that stuff, that's an outlier, because I know just enough to know that Soldano is a thing, and then they kind of vary it off that. I kind of think of those as somehow modified Marshalls in some way too. And again, generally speaking, not as oh no, let me tell you how the circuit works. This is what they're based off. I'm not talking like that. I'm just talking about like to my ears, to my usage when I'm using stuff. And then the rarest concept of all is Dumbles. But see, Dumbles, again, I feel like all modified things to me. And that's why I said some amps just feel like they're modified versions of stuff. So that's what I know about like high watts. And I don't know. So I don't know. Haven't tried many. Maybe I'll have to try more. That's a good way to segue into a topic. I was actually talking, funny, Michael Nilsson's in the chat. I was talking to Michael Nilsson about this, but I was talking about a bunch of other people, and then again on it today. And this subject came up. This is a good time, and this is perfect because we'll do this, and then we'll go into Guitar of the Week. So somebody asked me, did I see Dr. Z, the owner of Dr. Z, say it's the death of guitar amps. It's the death of guitar amps. I did not. I went to go look for it, but also I was trying to get ready for the show today. And so I started laughing. Now, I got to tell you, I don't want to talk about this like I saw whatever he had to say and I'm going to react to it. I'm not reacting to what he said. I actually don't care. So I'm reacting to that statement as this thing seems to keep coming up. Wampler says, it's the death of pedals, right? Dr. Z's like, it's the death of amps. And I think as a content creator, look, you got to have a snazzy title, right? You got to get somebody's interest in. You got to give them something like, hey, to bite on. Hey, here's what I'm going to talk about, and here's what's going to happen. But I think the problem with those, although they're great as a title grab, I think there's this reality that sometimes I know you guys know that that's just a title to grab your attention, and then maybe there's some context in it. But I want to tell you that one of the things that I think about every time I see a pedal builder or an amp builder, because you could almost argue, and I would argue that on my right now, what do I know what do I know about the amp market, more than Dr. Z? He's an amp builder, right? How should some random YouTube guy in his bedroom talk about what he thinks? And I think the problem is because I think even though that's a good argument, I'm going to argue a different argument today when it comes to a pedal builder talking about the pedal market versus an amp builder talking about the amp market, and a guitar builder versus someone like me. I like to point out I'm not vested or interested in anybody's products. In other words, I work with all kinds of people and I wish them the best because some of them are my friends and some of them are just good companies and I want to support their products. But I don't make any of my money off of products being sold. It's not how I make my money. So I really don't have any skin in that game. I have skin in the make YouTube content that you guys are interested in. And so that's my thing. So if we want to talk about the death of YouTube, sure, I might have a differently biased opinion of that versus thing. But here's what I think I want to react to. The statement, the death of guitar amps. I would rather change that every time when you guys hear them say the death of guitar amps, the death of guitar, hey, it's the death of electric guitar, hey, it's the death of pedals. It's no, just goodbye to the bad companies. That's what it is. There is no absolute zero. There's not even absolute zero when there's technology that comes in and takes out something, right? They still print maps. That's a fact. You have GPS on your phone. 12-year-old children have phones that have GPS all day. They still print maps. You can buy a book of maps. They still make them. There's technology never absolutely kills anything. Cars still go, right? Everything goes. You can argue. I'm sure somebody's going to find an outlier. Please do, right? Throw it in there and tell me why I'm wrong because you found one thing that it's not correct in this, or 10 things, which still are not going to be enough. My point is, whatever's happening to amps, because it is, amps are declining at an epic rate right now, and so is pedals. And is that death? No. It just means that some of the bad companies, and when I mean bad, I don't mean mean or crappy, just the companies that aren't the top. And I'm kind of sound, I kind of am like mad at myself for saying bad companies, but I just think it illustrates the point better than being super fluffy right now. The best survive. The best amp companies will survive. I was talking about Michael Nilsson. I was telling him a story yesterday. And the story was two things, so I want to go to it. One, I was saying when they say grunge killed heavy metal, I say no. I say they're wrong. Oh, let's argue. You guys are going to get flared up right now. It didn't. Here's how I know it didn't. Pantera was a 80s metal band first, before they were Pantera. Alice in Chains was a 80s style metal band. There were tons of bands. Slash was 80s style hair metal stuff. What happens when grunge came? Yes, grunge came and there was some... Tom Morello is a shredder. Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins is a shredder. He can shred. He can 80s shred. He was an 80s shredder. A lot of them were. What they did is they adapted. They said, hey, kids aren't listening to Guitar Hero style music that are about the girl they want to have sex with. What's going on? Oh, they're listening to these bands who are they're not teasing their hair, and they adapted. Some adapted badly and didn't do well. Okay. Some adapted so well, we confused them with the actual genre themselves. Alice in Chains is not a grunge metal band. Right now, when I said Alice in Chains adapted, some of you guys are like, oh, but Phil, Alice in Chains is not a grunge metal band. They're not, but they are definitely held in that era as a band that didn't get killed by grunge. They adapted in it. You're like, you think they just started that week and they were already in the market. They were making music and then they changed. Things adapt. The market adapts. Let me tell you why amp companies are hurting right now. And Dr. Z, by the way, I think Dr. Z makes some of the best amps. Okay. And I think, by the way, if you watch his videos, I love some of his most to the point comments in his videos. So I want to let you know, this isn't about Dr. Z in any way. Okay. And I'm going to watch what he has to say because I'm curious, but I actually didn't want to for this a little bit. Like I said, I didn't have time and I was like, oh, it kind of works out better. I was explaining to, again, Michael Nilsson, this is funny because it just happened yesterday, a theory I have, and it was about the Boss Katana. And it was like, I just did a video this week on the second channel about one of the Amplified Nation amps, which are, in my opinion, a more obtainable, not affordable, more obtainable version of 2-Rock. So if you're looking at like a 2-Rock style amp that's $5,000, you can get yourself an Amplified Nation for about $4,000. To you, you're like, that's insane and insane. But to some people, man, that makes it from, hey, $3,600, I got a shot at this. $5,200, there's no shot. Okay. So my point though is that some people put in the comments, oh, my Boss Katana does this. In fact, every channel that makes content can tell you very easily, every video they do about any amp that's expensive, somebody says, oh, my Boss Katana can do that. And so here's what I was explaining to Michael I play very lightly or quietly. Okay. None of my family thinks that. Like if you ask my wife, she's not going to tell you I play quietly. None of my neighbors probably think I play quietly. I don't know if they can even hear me. But all of my guitar player friends do not think I play loud. In fact, they think I set my amps very quiet. I don't crank the amps. I used to a long time ago. I don't anymore. I probably stopped 10 years ago, maybe even longer than that, maybe 15 years ago. I don't play very loud. When you have amps, let's pick on the Amplified Nation amp because it's right here, just like the Katana's right here. I'll use these two as examples. When you play that amp, as beautiful as I think that amp is, I actually think it's a work of art. So you understand. I think an amp like that's handmade, with the blue suede and stuff. This is just an art piece to me. This is a thing that I truly love. Do I need it? No, I could totally gig anywhere with a Katana. I'm not against that argument. I just think that this makes me feel a certain way, right? I think maybe this is how people who buy like $25,000 watch, maybe that's how that makes them feel. I don't understand that concept. So, I don't go, oh, I want a $25,000 watch. I go, maybe it helps their self-esteem. They're walking around and like, hey, what time is it? You're right. To me, this is what makes me feel good. So that's why I have this. But my point is, when I turn this amp down, one of the best attributes of this amp, like a lot of tube amps, is the power section. I've taken that out of the equation. Okay. And then because I'm not using the power section to even not only its fullest ability, but just to any ability, the speakers are taken out of the equation because they're not really moving like they're supposed to. So I make adjustments and I'm using pedals and all kinds of things to make things sound good at lower volumes. And I obtain this. I'm very happy. When somebody says, oh, I can get my Boss Katana to sound like it. Yeah, you can. As long as we're playing fair, which is putting these tube amps at a handicap by not using their full power. The reality is, I don't care what Boss. I don't care if you have the Artist Boss. I think there's a 100-watt Artist Boss. There is no one who's ever going to convince me that any Boss product, I don't care, cranked on a stage, it sounds as good as a Marshall amp cranked on a stage. There's just no way. I'm not saying it sounds bad. I'm not saying I couldn't use it. I'm not saying you're crazy if you like it. I'm just saying there's no one. Like if I A/B them, and I play them both, I'm gonna go. Yeah, the Marshall I think is better. And then I would probably tell you, can we turn this stupid thing down? And then I would probably then go, well, the Katana works for me, or the Artist Katana, whatever. So my point is, this is why I'm talking about adapting. I talk to amp builders all the time. They don't listen to anything I say. And I don't mean because I'm a YouTuber. I mean because when I'm speaking to them I'm you, right? We're all here on a Friday talking about crap that doesn't matter. This is who we are. People are so fanatical. We're so fanatical about the thing we love, music and guitars and amps, that we just want to talk about them. Play them, talk about them, look at them, right? Right? I mean, I look at guitars in magazines the way I think some guys look at like Playboy sports models or whatever, right? They're just staring at girls all the time. I'm like, oh, look at this guitar. So my point is, when I talk to amp builders about the future, hey, we need more lower wattage amps because the power section is not really relevant to a lot of us. We need amps that are good, but not we don't need $5,000 amps that literally are 100-watt amps. And the amp builders are stuck with the rock stars. They're also talking to professional musicians. And the professional musicians are giving them the opposite. Hey, this is what I need. But that's the minority. None of us are rock stars. In fact, even if you're gigging on the regular, you're being told to turn down. I just told you I don't play that loud. I haven't played a gig in the last 20 years that I wasn't told to turn down. And I don't crank that loud. It's because they always just want the volume down. So I guess my point is that whenever I see like pedals are dead or the death of pedals or the death of guitars or the death of amps, it's really just, hey, it's the survival of the fittest, and the ones that figure out where the market's going, they're going to do fine. They'll do great. And the ones that don't, they're going to be in trouble. We see it all the time. You know, we saw it with G&L. They made great products, but they just didn't adapt, not only in their marketing, but they didn't adapt in their pricing, their design, their delivery strategy with their dealers. And so I that's my 2 cents on this subject. And every time this subject comes up, because I just want to say, every time I hear the death of something, I kind of always chuckle a little bit like, yeah, it doesn't die. Okay, that's not what happens to it. It's changing. And the change means somebody goes away. And maybe that means they die. I don't know. There I just contradicted my whole statement for fun. Matt says, hey, any reason why you can't download episodes on YouTube Premium? I did not know that. Let me check. Actually, no, let me check right now. I will check after tonight. I will look. As far as I know, there is no setting that allows me to stop you from that. But if there is, and I've clicked it somehow, I'll fix it. You know, last week I got it. I get this every about, I don't know, I want to say 10 episodes. So every three months, let's call it 12 episodes every 3 months, about once a quarter. Once a quarter, I get a couple comments going, hey, you've turned off your closed captions. Hey, turn on the closed captions. That's not me. There is a setting that you can turn off closed captions. In other words, so your video doesn't have closed captions. I think I heard or read once that that's even illegal to do. So it's weird that it's an option. Maybe it's made an option for certain countries or something. But I don't do that at all. But if you notice, it's never happened once ever on an actual video I made, but always on the podcast. It's because sometimes there's a backlog on YouTube. I'm not sure the official answer, but they don't get to it. They don't do it. And then eventually they update it and they do it. It's always them. And in the past, I've sent them a message, and every time they send me a response a day or two later saying, oh, it's fixed, but they didn't fix it. It just caught up, and then they just tell me. So I stopped emailing them. So I'm just letting you guys know. I'll figure out the download thing. And if there's a problem, I'll fix that. And on the closed captions, I appreciate you guys putting comments. I said, I used to answer you guys. If I'm not answering now, it's not for any reason, then there's nothing I can do about it. So that's my official statement. There's nothing I can do about it. I always check it though. So anytime anywhere you guys put hey, there's no closed captions, I go to check to make sure I haven't accidentally hit any kind of weird setting. And I also think that part of the problem, so you know, on the closed caption thing is because I don't monetize the show until after it starts replay. And you've probably heard this before. When you don't monetize and you're a channel like me with this kind, I mean, there's 1,500 of you live, YouTube's like punishing you a little bit. So they'll throttle down. So not only do I not get the monetization for the first 2 hours of the show, which is on approximately 6,000 views, just so you guys know. You guys think it's 1,500 views because there's 1,500 of you. There's 1,500 of you at any 1 minute or 1 second here right now. But through the 2 hours, we're going to cycle apparently four times your number, because there's about sometimes about 4,000 or 5,000 people. So I lose out on the 4,000 or 5,000 views that we do because we're not monetizing, and then they throttle down the sharing it afterwards because it wasn't monetized yet. It's so you know, just because it's sponsored by patrons, so I guess it doesn't really matter anyways. But it's about $150 per episode is what we lose. There's 52 episodes. You do the math. That's what we lose a year by doing ad free at the beginning. That's you'll hear a lot of channels say, hey, I don't make much. Well, that's probably because they had like 30 people live and they get 200 views. 6,000 views on a 2-hour stream like this, it's about $100, $150 to the channel that we are skipping. So I'm just letting you know, but not to tell you like on the money side, I just want you to explain that that's why I think YouTube is also not worried about closed captions and also messing with some of the features. They put us as a back burner. We're no different than if you have a new channel at that point and you're not monetized. They don't care about it because there's no money for them to make. So, okay. And then Cigar Dad saying YouTube also stopped letting us use the playback speed. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know why it would affect that. There shouldn't be anything that affects that. There's nothing in the settings we can do to prevent you or have that or anything like that. Okay, on that note, you know what it's time for.
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week.
Now it's time for Guitar of the Week. This week's Guitar of the Week, like every Guitar of the Week, has a story. It's a story time for the guitar, and it's a new guitar day for me, but it's been here for a while. You guys see it in the background. I just didn't know if it was a guitar I was going to share or when to share it, and things lined up, the universe lined up, and now there's a story to tell, because that's kind of what this is. So today, do I show you the guitar first? Yeah, let's start with the guitar first. Okay, so first thing, it's a Kiesel. And I know that's our joke because we say, hey, it's a Kiesel. Today, it's actually a Kiesel. And it's a Kiesel I ordered, and I'm going to explain why and why I have it. And I think the story is actually more interesting than the guitar itself. So we'll see. So what is it? It is a Kyber 7-string in the Rainbow Crackle. I don't know if they call it Rainbow Crackle. That's what I call it. But obviously, it looks like this. It's a lot of colors. Some of you are puking right now. But I think after you hear the story, you might have a different opinion of that. Maybe. So what did I do? I ordered this. I had the 6-string, and I decided I liked it so much I wanted the 7-string, but I had the headstock version. And at the time when I was ordering this, I was like, well, I already had 3 7-strings, and I couldn't justify another one. So I did what every good fanatical guitar freak does. I made up a reason. Which is I don't have a headless 7-string. So look at that. See? Okay, it's not really entirely true. I just made all that up, but I did come up with a bogus reason. So 7-string. So here's what it is. It's an Alder body, 1 volume, coil split, 3-way switch, 2 pickups. I believe they're the Berylliums. Roasted maple neck, courtesan, no multi-piece. It's 1 piece. I did an ebony fretboard. And you can see it's like, looks a little rosewoody. It's because it's got a little bit of milky veining in there, you know, from not being just a pure dark. I did the aluminum front dots and the side dots. And the reason I did this is I've learned a lesson, and I've been thinking about making a video, an actual specific video about this. I've said here on the channel 2 things that I'm going to repeat right now. 1, I'm not smart. I'm sometimes experienced, which is the worst way to get information, right? I say it a lot. I say it to my friends all the time. You know, everything I know is because of experience, which is the worst way, least efficient, worst way to get information. It sticks with you the hardest, but boy, it's a lot easier when you figure it out without having to have the experience of it. So that, and the other thing I always say is you can't go back. Well, I have tried to buy my childhood back many times when it comes to guitars. As you know, I've bought so many 80s era guitars. You know, hey, look at this fluorescent this, look at this crazy swirl that. Every one of them has been a dismal failure. Here's what I've learned about myself. I wasn't really an 80s shredder for more than a minute because, like I said, I started playing guitar. That's what I started playing, 80s shredder. But by the time I was playing guitar for about 1.5 to 2 years, that already gone. That music was gone, and I already switched to his bass. And what I've kind of learned is I don't want 80s shredder guitars to play. I want them as wall art, and that's kind of expensive wall art. And so I've been trying to find a way over the years to find things that are, you know, hey, it's the look I want, but it's more, you know, more reasonable to me. And this was an example of that. So let me tell you how I got into guitar, because most people don't know this story, and it's easy. I wanted to get girls. And I was like, well, you need to play guitar. That's actually not true. That's why I like my story better than everybody else. Every guy I met, every guitar player is like, started playing guitar to get girls. I started playing guitar to get girls. That's not why I started playing guitar. I'm going to tell you something, and thank God I timestamped this stuff later, because boy, Guitar of the Week's going to be at least 2-3 minutes out. So I was I want to say traumatized, but I was kind of a little traumatized as a kid in a weird way. I was in the 5th grade in school. My parents and we lived in an apartment, and I was going to go into 6th grade, as you do, in elementary school, and I liked to play G.I. Joes and Robotech. That was my thing, G.I. Joes and Robotech. And I got a sense, as a young boy, you get a sense that you're getting a little too old for toys. I'm not into sports, so toys is what I had. And I could tell like less of my friends wanted to come over and play G.I. Joe or play sword fights or stuff, whatever, or play Robotech and stuff. And I told myself 6th grade will be the last year I can play toys, and I'll just play toys. And then I'll when I go to junior high, I gotta be a, I didn't say adult, but I'll have to grow up. You gotta grow up, man. You can't play toys, playing with dolls in junior high. What's wrong with you? And here's what happened. We moved and we were able to get a house. So we got a house in a neighborhood, and the school in that neighborhood, we moved during the summer. So 5th grade to 6th grade summer. And the school I got, when we moved, the school I went to was not a junior high. It was a middle school. I had never heard of some such a concept, neither did my mom. Middle school means it's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So all of a sudden, I'm in junior high, 6th grade. It was very stressful for me, emotionally, so you know, just destroyed me, just emotionally, because I had already planned I'm going to play toys all through 6th grade. Now I'm in junior high. And I tried a couple of times. I tried to tell I met a friend and I'd be like, hey, you want to come play G.I. Joe? I got all the Cobras and the Joes. I got a Terradrome, man. I had a Terradrome. No USS flag for me because I was never like that. But I got a Terradrome, which is pretty legit. So anyways, here's what happened. I decided I had to figure out how to grow up, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get out of toys. So I go, well, what do I like? I like music. My mom used to sing all the time. My mom was really into music, so I was into music. So I decided I was going to do music. And then I'm going to try to rush this part. How I got into music was we would go every Friday after my dad got home. We would go to the swap meet because he could drink. They like to drink a lot of alcohol. So he would get drunk walking up and down the swap meet. My mom got to spend a little money. Everybody seemed happy. And there was a bootleg tape seller there at the swap meet. For those in Tucson, it was the Tanque Verde swap meet when it was on Tanque Verde. Anyways, and I bought my first cassette. I bought Tiffany. Because I would look at the cassettes and she was cute. She had the cute, she's a cute girl on the cover. And I knew the song. And I'm not embarrassed by this at all. So, I literally got the tape. I took it home and I'm like, I think we're alone now. And I went to school and I like pulled it out like on my shirt, like on a jacket, like I show my friends, like, look what I got. I got a Tiffany cassette. You want to come listen to Tiffany cassette at my house? Yeah, I was that kid. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. I thought I was cool. No more like, hey, you want to come play Robotech? It was like, hey, you want to come listen to Tiffany? This is cool. Nobody thought that was cool, by the way. Not making any friends. Listen, no one. For the record, you cannot make friends in junior high with the Tiffany cassette. So the next Friday, true story, went to the Tanque Verde swap meet again. Went to the bootleg tape seller again, and I bought the Fat Boys. I didn't get the one that had the hit song on it. Not that they had a hit song. I got the one that has the song "My Nuts," and so I walked around the house and I'm like, "My nuts." So I went to school and I found out the kids that go, my nut, they don't want to hang out with me. so I learned I was not a rapper. So I'm not a pop kid. I'm not a rapper kid. I didn't know what I was. I just knew I can't be Robotech and G.I. Joe anymore. And so then I went the third week and there was Metallica there, and the cassettes were scary. I thought the blood on Kill 'Em All was freaking me out. And then I saw Motley Crue. I knew who Motley Crue was, and I got Motley Crue Shout at the Devil. And, I never thought about it just now. In fact, I told the story recently, and I said, this is true, I guess. I never figured this out. I went to school, and I showed the kids, like, hey, I'm Motley Crue. And then I started making friends. I never thought about the metal kids, I guess, were just cooler. Yeah, because I guess they weren't cool, right? So that would make sense. The pop kids were cool, so they were douches, and the rap kids were cool, so they were douches. So they were like, get this nerdy dipshit away from me. But yet the metal kids were like, oh, cool, yeah, Shout at the Devil, that's a great album. And they're like, yeah, you want to come over and listen to it in my house? And they go, yeah. And then from that, as I got into music, by the way, for the record, which is not a record, it's a cassette, but for the cassette record, the next following week, I got Permanent Vacation by Aerosmith. And I loved Aerosmith. That kind of took me a different way. So anyways, so then I decided to get a guitar. So what happened to me was I went in the music store, and the very first guitar I ever saw, this is a true event. The very first guitar I ever saw, Like I walked in the store and, you can walk in it like this. There's guitars on the wall. You can see all these guitars, but which guitar do you see first? Which guitar do you look at and go, look at Green Jazz Master. Look at that, thing with orange pickups. The guitar that was, I walked in and I saw, which then became everything like, whoa, what is that? I need that, was this guitar right here. It was a Series 10. Series 10 was a company owned by St. Louis Music Company. Blue and red crackle guitar. This, at the time, I did not know. In fact, I didn't learn until many, many, many years later. This is a copy of a Charvel, right? And if you've seen the Charvel, you know that it's really more like this, and it has the multiple colors like this, where the Series 10. So the Series 10 guitar, back to Series 10, I saw this guitar and I was like, this is the guitar. If I get this guitar, I will have everything in my life, like, will just be complete. Like that, right out of Wayne's World. It shall be mine. And so I've always wanted a Series 10 blue and red crackle guitar. And through the years, I've picked them up when I found them in stores and I go, oh, these aren't good. Because at this point, I've played a lot longer and, they've been abused. They were entry-level instruments, or at least more affordable instruments. So a lot of them did not get cherished like some of the most coveted Jacksons and Charvels and stuff. So anyways, I've always wanted one. And so I saw this opportunity, and that's the story today, which is I thought, why don't I get a headless 7-string and then do it in that color? And every time I see this guitar, by the way, it totally reminds me of the first time I ever went into a music store. And I mean literally the first time I ever went to a music store. I walked in, Sticks and Strings music on, what was it on? Camino Seco and Broadway. And I walked in there and I saw the guitar and I was like, I need that and a crate amp, and if I have that, I'll be set. And by the way, that's not what I got, because that was too expensive by far. That guitar was way too expensive. So like I always laugh when people talk about like this copy of a Charvel. I'm like, that copy was just too expensive. Couldn't even think about that. So let's switch camera angles, if you don't mind. Got to move some stuff around, as you know. Got to move the mic to switch the camera angles. All right, so now we move the mic. Here we go. And let's get this guitar into shot, maybe. Okay, hold on. Here we go. That way you cannot see the headstock. You're like, hey, why are you cutting off the headstock? It's already been cut off. By the way, this is one of the Kiesel's headless that you can hang. I like that I had a little bit to do with that because I complained a lot that you couldn't hang them on wall hangers, and they finally decided to do something about it, which is cool. I'm going to be running through, what am I running through today? I am running through my Morgan PR12, which is like a Princeton amp, and I'm going to be running my PXO, which is the Phil X distortion pedal, which is going to be a strange choice for this, but it'll be fine. First, let's start with some clean. And I'll play the neck pickup, give you a little taste of clean, then I'll give you just some distortion. You know how it works. Coil split that. Such a bad note. Okay, so something I gotta tell you on 7 strings, why I like them is because they have a low B. I like the middle position the most, and I like to play it like a bass. It's just more natural to me as a bass player. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn on that Phil X PXO pedal. So now you can hear distortion. I'm gonna hit drums. I have a backing drum track. I'll put a link to the YouTube channel that makes these tracks that it's absolutely amazing. And this is a track I've been working on. I've been using this drum track as like a bass for the concept of it. This song has a very special name. And this song is called My Bass Player Didn't Show Up, So I Bought a 7-String. So anyways, so that's the name of the song. Let's give it a try. Here we go. Just a little bit more, just to show you the neck pickup with the gain. Here we go. All right, that was fun. All right, so that is the Kiesel Kyber. This is the Kyber, named after the Kyber crystal from Star Wars, and a 7-string with the low B in the rainbow crackle finish, which is, I think, the biggest seller. I did fight the notion to put colored pickups in there. I thought, no, I'm gonna leave it alone. I think I made the right choice. Weight-wise, this guitar is pretty light. This is about 6.5 pounds, as it would be, because it's, they chopped off about a pound of headstock. so give you an idea. And like I said, it is alder. I didn't go roasted alder, something to mention. You can go roasted alder if you want to save more weight, but I didn't do that. And it comes with a deluxe bag. And another cool little thing that they do that I like is they put the backplate, look, it says Kyber on there, and it's this is ebony, and then there's like this laser cutting into it. That's standard. Normally with those guys, you get a plastic one, you pay for ebony, but this comes standard with ebony. So pretty cool. So I'm excited because I think, let's go here, move my mic now this way. I was really cool because, it takes me back to my childhood. It's practical for me. In other words, having a 7-string that's a headless guitar, it's kind of fun to play. Puts it in something I can use it, and has a look. And like I said, something I've learned is that when I buy these guitars just for their looks and I try to play them, I find that I don't play them very often, where like this has a purpose. This has a purpose. So when I'm playing a 7-string, I do it. All right, everyone has any questions about the guitar of the week or the guitar? We're not going to talk about my Tiffany or Fat Boys, any of that stuff ever again. Those moments are past. It's over. And for the record, yeah, like I said, didn't occur to me that you could get chicks with a guitar. I didn't even think that was a thing. I think now if you think about it, I was probably just trying to get friends. Actually, sounds more pathetic when I say it like that, but at least it's more truthful. Okay. And then, so he said, what made you pick the color? We just covered that, Jacob Lopez. You got to go back just a little bit more, and I'll explain the whole colors and the whole explaining the colors. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this guy. Look at this. This guy says, Ben something. Ben Mervin says, when I look at these type of guitars, I think wood should have just stayed bean tree sometimes. Look, so not your cup of tea. I understand. It's a different look. It's not a traditional look. And by the way, never offends me, that stuff. I don't really care. Like, that's not the thing that gets under, I think that's awesome. I like that you actually can say that. And I like that we have an environment where you can go, I don't like the way that sounded, or I don't like the way it looks. So it's really cool. Especially for me, because I tend to like a lot of stuff. So, like if you look at the guitar, like I like the old Jazzmaster, the way that it looks. I like the way a new modern guitar looks. I like the way the 80s glam guitars look. I like the way the new modern, guitars that the kids are playing look, the headless with the fan frets. By the way, I didn't get fan frets in this. I've decided I'm just not a fan frets person. In fact, here's a little, this will be a cool tidbit because we didn't do the thumbnail yet. This guitar, the reason I didn't show it to you guys for a little while was I was having some trouble with it. And I should talk about that because that was really, really bonkers weird for me. Every time I was playing this, I swear I kept seeing fan frets, and it was slanted. The frets were slanted, and it was like really messing with my brain. And I'm like, why do I think these are slanted? They're not. And I go to play it, and it's almost like between the slanted frets and 7 strings, I was getting just, muddled up, and I was like, what is going on? And I think, I don't know for 100%, but I think it's because so many of the guitars that I've either tried in the past, either done reviews of, or just came across that were headless and 7s were always fan frets. So I think my brain just kind of goes, oh, it's a fan fret because that's what they always are. And so it took me a little time to play this to go, okay, they're not fanned, and I'm not having troubles finding stuff. And that being said, let's do the thumbnail. Let's hold the guitar. There we go, center it up. We'll look at the guitar like, what? That's a guitar? And that's my thumbnail. What? That's a guitar? Like, that's just what we should put in the caption. What is that? Is that a guitar? Is that a guitar? Okay, there. Thank you guys for that. It makes the thumbnail easier later. All right. Matt Harrison, Rainbow Crackle is cool. Yeah, what's funny is I've always liked all of the 80s crazy colors. It's just fun. They're just fun. And I kind of always felt like I need to also turn off this pedal because it's hissing. And you guys probably can't hear it, but it's driving me crazy. I'm like, why is it hissing? Because I had the boost on too. By the way, that's the Phil X PXO pedal that I was using, which is not a high gain pedal. So it just kind of tells you about gain, doesn't it? A lot of you would perceive that as being very high gain, right? I think most of you that listen to me just play right now probably thought I was playing high gain through a 7-string. That's the Phil X pedal, man. Trust, if you think Phil X is running high gain, but it sounded great because in that song I was playing, when I do the pick throughs, it needs to be actually clean, right? And I have tried when I'm playing to stomp on a pedal and go to clean for this part. Anyone else have this problem too? Since it's clean now, it'll be easy. When I do the that's what it should be. And the drums should kick down. The reason why I don't have that set up that way is because I can't, for some reason, every time I step on the pedal, there's always that zhin, and then I'm like, I just stumble a little bit, especially live in front of you guys. So I was going through pedals after pedal after pedal, trying to find the pedal that when I did the pick through, it just didn't sound like mush. And that pedal seemed to articulate the best. So congratulations, Phil X. You made a pedal that doesn't sound like mush, and I liked it. So, yeah, it's there. Okay, let's go to another subject question. What do we got? I haven't even grabbed this one. Hold on. Okay, let's grab this one. This one was from Amanda. This is from Amanda. She said, she grabbed this and it says, "Hey, Phil, read that reversing the saddles on a tune-o-matic bridge can improve intonation on wound strings. Is this true?" I would argue whether it's true or not would probably be irrelevant, as I don't think that's why anyone does it. When you top wrap a string on a tune-o-matic bridge tailpiece, it is generally been used for a tension change, to change the way that it feels when you're doing bends. And I've talked about this before, that one of the things I always thought was funny was, I think Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers did it and Zach Wild did it. And I always thought that was funny because these are probably two dudes that never crossed paths and said, hey, that's how I do it. And like, me too. So it's funny to me when different musicians, kind of like when I was telling you about the story about Fender with different people, when different people who are playing different things that are in different places can come across the same ideas. Sure, they could have heard them the same, but for them to adopt them, to me, kind of solidifies them as being more of a true thing than so much just a wives' tale or a myth. I have top wrapped my tailpieces on my guitars, and I have noticed the exact same thing. When you wrap over the top, your tension is decreased. The feel of it decreases. And so if you're playing 10 to 46, they feel a little bit looser. So I've heard that there is sustain increase, increased sustain. Intonation, I could see that as an argument. I don't know why intonation would be. So here's my point. As someone who's worked on these guitars for so many years, I don't know what it'd be physically changing, because the intonation is from the saddle, from the bridge saddle to the nut, right? That's where intonation is affected. Intonation is not affected by anything past those 2 points. So it's from that tip to that tip. So it's like really where the string rests into the saddle and this part. My God, I was going to use a Sharpie. It doesn't matter. So you get the point. This is the string. This is the string. This is the saddle. The intonation would be affected from when the string is contacting this point forward, if this is the bridge. And then on the nut, the same thing would be before the end of the nut. By the way, so you guys know, in your screen, I'm probably doing this weird, holding it this way, because I have something in front of me. So I had to turn that. This is where I'm reading your question. So my point is, intonation being affected, is it possible? There is another factor in intonation, which is tension. Guitars, what I mean by that is you could hit a note, because remember, people think of intonation as just being distance, where sometimes it can physically be tension, because hitting an open string lightly, you go, oh, it's perfectly intonated. Let's say take an A for 40, that's not really going to be your intonation 100%. Your intonation is really affected more. You're going to notice it more the more you go up the neck. So maybe with tension, it will get different. So maybe by changing the tension, you can improve the intonation. There may be an argument there, but I'm going to stick with my original statement, which is whether it is or isn't a factor in intonation, I would say that's not why anybody's doing it. That could be a byproduct that they notice. The function of it is to change the tension on a Les Paul to make it easier to play, especially players who play really thick strings, is what I noticed too. So if you haven't done it, you can try. You can try it. You just top wrap it. I have a video. I'm pretty sure it's I think it's the Guitar Myths video, which is like a 1 million view video, and I discussed that in detail, why they do it and why all that stuff. But so Pop at something says you can just use a guitar to demonstrate it. I could, but then I have to hold the guitar awkwardly in front of the camera and then point. It's not set up that way. It's not how it works, unfortunately. You got to set up your rig the way it's set up. So in the other rig, I can show you guys in detail anything. But here, it's the second I go and grab a guitar and just start pointing at things, it gets a little more difficult. Plus, because so many people consume the podcast as audio only, I have to describe it verbally more than I have to show you anyways, because otherwise people listening in the car right now are going to go, I don't know what he's talking about, because he's not saying anything. This is also from Amanda. Triplet Trains 1373 says, hey, have you ever had two guitars sound alike, and what would you change to make them sound different? I would say that's the rarest thing I've ever come across. Two even identical guitars sounding the exact same and feeling the same is probably the hardest thing to achieve. I've probably spent more time in my life trying to get two guitars that sound alike than I've ever found two guitars sounding alike. To the point where it's almost like I think it's a futile effort. I don't know if I would ever, somebody's like, I got two identical Strats, same wood, same pickup, same height, same this, same measurement, same strings, same setup, same frets, and they don't sound alike. I'm like, yep, that sounds more like it to me. I think it's because the variables are so much that it's too hard to get all of them exact. Have I ever played or had two guitars that sound exactly alike? Maybe. I don't remember. I don't think it's ever happened. I don't think. I mean, generally speaking, like, could I convince you on a YouTube video by strumming a couple generic chords and saying through the microphones going, oh, they sound the same, don't they? And it's funny about the one-dimensional kind of concept of showing things on a platform like YouTube. You can really convince people of some bullshit real easy. You can go like, hey, look, ling, this sounds like this, ling. And if you haven't figured out why honesty is so important on YouTube is really the real thing you need is somebody to explain the personal experience to you. And although that can be tainted with their bias, which is why knowing their bias is important, and it can also be tainted with their experience or lack of, or, maybe too much experience. At least if you have an idea, if somebody's telling you like, hey, regardless of what you're hearing, this is what's really happening, right? That's where it really happens. But yeah, in a YouTube video, I can make two guitars sound exactly alike because you just stop doing anything that's going to increase the variable of that. So like I said, a perfect example is like strum the strings open on one guitar and then strum the strings open on another guitar and go, look, they're the same, and they're going to sound generally the same. But will all the other things that are really important to you be the same? Probably not so much. So, and I didn't really get too much in that to my channel, but in the beginning I did a lot of comparison stuff. And then over time you do comparison because people like it. But then what you realize is that it's almost impossible to give them a real good comparison. You just have to tell them the difference. And then the skeptics come in. It's like, it's weird that the guitar community has the same skeptics as every other community, but we do have them. Like, whoa, when you didn't show us the proof of that, like the proof of it, I'm just telling you what I think. So that's my thought on that. Two guitars sounding alike is very difficult. Which is why I think, and I think a lot of sane people, we'll call them sane guitar players, think that tone wood, not that it exists or doesn't exist, it's where tone wood debate came from. Where tone wood comes from, the concept is two guitars never sound the same, usually. Say never is a hard word, right? Generally don't sound the same. And so then the argument becomes, oh, well, it's because they're different woods. And if they're not different woods, it's just different, densities of wood or different grains or different, type, right? And so that becomes, I think, where that argument comes from. The reality is, the best I've ever heard it put is this. When somebody says, oh, everything sounds the same, I'm like, oh, if that's true, then it'd be a lot easier to make money in this business. If I could make every guitar sound the exact same, that would be the easiest thing to do, right? Is I could sell them. The problem is that guitar players go in a music store and they pick up 7 of the same guitar, and yet 6 of them they don't like and 1 of them they love. If you could convert all of those 7 to being the one they love, you would make a lot more money. And I told you guys that I've learned this the hard way as someone who had to sell guitars for a long time in a store. That was my money tied up in those guitars when guitars just could not sell. I don't mean one person didn't like it. I mean every guitar player came in, they just didn't like it. They didn't like this guitar, and you do a full setup on it. They didn't like it. Just there's something about the guitar. It just didn't appeal to anybody. You just learn. Like, just not everything's going to be great. Some guitars are just not great, or even good even. Let's see. Guitars, amps, and coffee. Oh, see, that's good. I like that name. So Guitars, Amps, and Coffee says, hey, I found a Jackson X Series Kelly for $100 at a thrift store. That's awesome, especially the thrift store, because I hear all the time that they're gouging now and stuff. It says, any suggestions for a pickup upgrade that would be for that guitar that would kind of 80s rock Van Halen kind of vibe? Definitely go with the JB Jazz. But dude, find a used one. Stick used JBs in there. So somebody's always yanking out a JB in the guitar, JB Jazz. Get yourself a used set of Seymour Duncans. That would definitely do it. Or get yourself some used DiMarzios or some copy of those kind of pickups. A lot of good copies out there. Mighty Might makes good copies. What's it? Why am I having trouble with that? They make the SLS guitars. Why can't I think of the name of them? Guitar Fetish. They make some good copy pickups. So you can always get copies. If you want the real deal, I totally understand that. So but buy used. Pickup used is sometimes a great deal. So, and a JB is a great pickup, especially for the 80s. I think it's for me, it's the JB and the Super Distortion. It's the DiMarzio, Seymour Duncan, like they owned the 80s. Paul says, hey, Phil, what are some good rule of thumb to maintain gold-plated hardware? Don't sweat on it. wipe it down all the time. That's, first of all, it's plated like crap, as we all know, it's usually cheap. But the biggest problem you're going to have is your sweat destroys it. And it getting sweat like wet on it isn't what destroys it. It's just when your sweat dries, the salt and the acids in your skin, the corrosive stuff that's in not in the skin, in your liquid, in your sweat, stay behind, and they dry out and they eat at the bridge. So I would say the best thing you can do is wipe it down constantly. Have a nice cloth. I would say 100% cotton. You can do flannel or microfiber. Have that dry. You don't need chemicals. You don't need to spray anything on it. You don't need anything. Just dry it all off, and that's great. You don't need to wet it. Don't worry about, just wipe it off. If you wipe it off when it's wet, if you wipe off your sweat when it's wet, you should be fine. You just wipe it off. If your sweat has dried, you're going to need something to clean it. That's up to you. You could use a guitar polish. You can probably use Windex. Whatever it is, just keep in mind that anything that you pick, just make sure it doesn't get on the screws too, because the screws can rust and stuff. But that's not really what you're worried about. You're worried about the gold plating kind of stuff. But definitely keep it dry. That's the biggest thing you can do. One trick that I saw a guy do, and he did it for years, and I used to think it was crazy, and I kind of think now it worked, was he would use sweatbands. And I remember thinking it was so weird that he would play on stage with sweatbands, and I used to do his repairs, his work, and he told me it's because he sweat so much that it got on his guitar and it ruined his guitars. It destroyed like the finish on his chrome, on his hardware. It ate through his strings. And so he would put sweatbands on, and that way it would soak up the sweat. Plus, he could use them to wipe off any of the wet, the wet of his guitar. So, I don't know, man. Maybe sweatbands is the key. I don't know. Just passing the information. Frank says, "Hey Phil, he's in the market for an attenuator. Would you recommend something like the Tone King? I love the Tone King Iron Man. It's one of my top favorite attenuators. For moving up more expensive aux box solution. The aux box is the worst attenuator ever in the history of attenuators. I'm going to call it that. Michael Nielsen and I were talking yesterday. It seems to be a drop today a lot, but we were talking for a little bit. And he said the 5-way switch on I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Michael says that he called the 5-way switch on the aux box the blankets. It's like, how many blankets do you want on your sound? 1, 2, 3. I said, actually, I don't think that's accurate. I think it's I think it's the blankets pillow. So if the aux box, it's 1 blanket, 2 blanket, then 2 blankets and a pillow. Then it's 2 blankets and 2 pillows. Aux box has the worst attenuator, but the aux box has one of the best direct sounds. I absolutely love it. So I love my aux box. If I was, and I'm working on this as maybe as an idea for a video, the 10 pieces of gear that I can't live without. I don't mean right now or the company sent me. I'm talking about like just in my whole life. This is what I've had. If this was gone, it would change me for the worse. The aux box is definitely in that top 10, no problem. But not as an attenuator. I use it sometimes as an attenuator, but it just darkens the amp up a lot. And it's just not something I like, but I love it for direct. In fact, I like it better than most. Attenuators, I've owned a lot. I have a lot currently right now. There's a lot. Somebody says the Fryette Power Station. The Fryette Power Station, like the Boss Waza, which I think the Fryette's way better than the Boss Waza, but like that, they're a different kind of animal, right? Because now what they're doing is they're putting themselves in place of your power section. And that's really cool and a unique feature. But to me, if you're looking at the Iron Man, one of the things I like about Tone King Iron Man is you're just, like if you're like me and you have like a little 12-watt combo or a 20-watt amp and you just want to, put something in front of it, I would highly suggest the smaller version of the Iron Man, the more affordable one. It's like $500 versus the bigger one. I have both, but if your amp's under 30 watts, go with the smaller one. I don't think you'll ever regret it. It's really good sounding, attenuator. So think about something like that. There's a bunch of others. I have like the Sur one. I have, look, there, and somebody always does this. Anytime you say anything good about attenuators, somebody's always got to mention their attenuator. There are a lot of good ones. Very few to no bad ones. And if they are any bad ones, they're just because they're old, outdated stuff and they just have gotten better at it now. But I would say Iron Man is one of my favorites, especially for the price points. But also the Sur one's really good too. But I'm talking about just if you just straight up just need attenuation, no other frills. You don't need it to be a power section, so you have an effects loop in the thing. You don't need it, you don't need the other options. But the aux box, like I said, I recommend the aux box only if you're going to use it for either direct recording or you're going to use it on stage to run it to front of house. Aux box, I think, is one of the best choices you can get out there. Nella says that aux box is expensive. It's super expensive, and I've told this story so many times, and I just want to be very clear. The aux box, I don't have a thing with UA Audio. I don't have a relationship with them. So when the aux box came out, every YouTuber was like, it's the greatest thing since everything. And that's what, happens when it all comes out, right? And I'm like you guys, I'm skeptical. You should be skeptical. Hey, be skeptical of me. You don't know why. Like I said, sometimes I'm like, hey, this company worked with me and they're sponsoring the video. Even knowing that, maybe you're skeptical. It's fine. I try to be as transparent as I can, but still, you can have honeymoon not only with a piece of gear and then, you don't trust everything because they're in love with it, but also I can have a honeymoon relationship with the company. Maybe I like the company a little bit. That's why I try to tell you who's my friend and who's not, not as a brag, but as a, hey, I have a relationship with this person. I like them. So I'm kind of probably talk about them like I don't, a little bit nicer is what I'm trying to say. I try not to, but I try to pick friends that can take a little abuse. But, it goes on the way it goes. My point is, Oxbox, I was skeptical, and so I was going to buy one, but I was really afraid to buy one because everyone got one for free. And I was like, everyone got one for free, which means it's probably not good. If they send, like when a company sends every YouTuber or something, I'm always like, oh, that's the trigger for me. As a YouTuber, if I see, a channel get some piece of gear sent to my company, I don't think anything of it. That's just the company wants to get it advertised. They probably worked out a thing like, hey, they like it and does it. When I see almost half the channels that I'm watching with the same piece of gear, I know it's a marketing push, but then I'm a little skeptical, not because it's a marketing push, because I'm like, everyone likes it. That's a lot of people to like something, in a very short period of time of having access to it. But anyways, back to the Oxbox. I was skeptical. And I did not, it's hard to say, how do you look at this, okay? I did not buy my Oxbox, but UA Audio did not give me the Oxbox. I was very upfront about this when on many podcasts before. Sweetwater reached out to me and asked me to do a video for them in which they offered to pay me. And I said, I actually would really want an Oxbox. Will you send me an Oxbox? And because I want to try one. And I did that as the compensation so instead of payment, which is dumb because I could have just got the money and just bought an Oxbox. I don't know why I didn't do it. I could do it either way. I guess it didn't matter. But I took it as compensation. And then I made a video of the Oxbox, which was not, I think in the video, so you guys know, it says product provided, which implies that it's sponsored. I was not required to do a video of the product in any way. It's just the way I do product provided is if I know somebody at the company, it's product provided. If a company loaned it to me, but they're getting it back, it's product provided. If a company's paying me, it's product. I just tell, kind of like I tell everybody it's sponsored, even if it's not even remotely sponsored. Even if I worked with them 5 years ago and I haven't worked with them since, and I bought a product, I'm going to put product sponsored. So just so you guys know, because why not? So anyways, Nella, the reason I'm telling you that is I'm telling you as someone who's had an Oxbox now for 3-4 years, I absolutely love it. And it's a super crazy expensive, and you can find deals on them. So if you're interested, find a deal on one. But it's worth it. To me, like I said, I couldn't live without it. Let's see. Oh, I'm not old vintage says the blitzscreen marketing on the Acoustasonic made me decide would never buy one. Yeah, it's probably where I got a lot of my skepticism for the Acoustasonic. And I'm different, so you guys know. You guys are looking at it like, it's the YouTube community and the corporations against me. I have a little bit of paranoia baked in that you guys wouldn't have, which means when I see like, some great channels, right? Some channels that are way better than mine. And I don't mean more viewers. I'm not talking about that at all. That's irrelevant. In fact, doesn't even usually factor in anymore. When I see a channel that I go, oh, that's a really good channel, and they were sent this product, and I go, okay, I don't think anything of it. When I see a couple more channels, I go, okay, I don't think anything of it. When I see like 90% of the guitar community and they're all promoting a product, and yet no, that company's not reaching out to me, I get a little paranoid, not because I'm like, they should be talking to me. It's more like, oh, they don't That's like specifically they don't want to talk to me. So I go, what does that mean? But I should take it as they just don't like my content, which is probably all it is. But sometimes I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe they don't. So Acoustasonic, and the perfect example, Acoustasonic, it was promoted by everyone. One of my favorite bands in the world, Bowling for Soup, he's got one. He plays it. He loves it. Some people, Dovey Doss got sent one. He's a friend of mine, and he still plays his. See, I look at it that way. Are they still keeping it? Do they keep it? Because sometimes that tells you a lot too. In fact, I think it tells you the most, and sometimes. But what's my point? My point is, but then they tanked as a product. So by the time I thought I'd buy one and put one on the channel, maybe do a deep dive, they had tanked. So I'm like, why do it? None of you guys want one because it tanked. Okay, we got to get back to guitar stuff. Let's finish it up. Let's finish up the show. What are we going to talk about? Something. Let me refresh this. And go here. Oh, that was that one? The Pick 5663 says, Phil, if you reopen your store now, do you think you would have made a killing? I don't know. I was doing really well then. So, we did not, we weren't not huge, but as a business, we were doing fine. I started my store. We started a store in a 1,400 square foot, not even 1,400 square foot storefront. And within the first 2 years, we moved it to 3,500 square feet. We built our lesson rooms from 2 to 10. And then I think at one point 12, I'd have to ask Shauna, 12 lesson rooms at some point. And then of course repair was always backlogged. Now, does that mean you're killing it and you're making millions of dollars? No. But as a business, if you can open a business and do well, the bills were all paid, employees were paid, everything's fine. We weren't really having issues. And then when I started doing YouTube, it was kind of helping a little bit, but it wasn't the goal. So if I open it today, I guess the answer to your question, let me answer your question. What I make a killing? If I open a store today, it would be nothing like my store. My store was a dated platform that is now dead. It is not why I closed it, but it is now currently a dated platform that is dead. I was a top tier, for an independent small store, I was a top tier Fender dealer. I wouldn't be a Fender dealer now. It has nothing to do with Fender's problems. It's just, there's so much better ways to make money in the music industry as a dealer now. I would probably had changed about 5 different things with the store. To modernize it. I see lots of stores. The reason I know this is I see lots of stores, and I know friends that have stores, and I go in I don't have to worry about them paranoid going, is he talking to me? They all know. If I've told them all what I think. Everybody that I'm a friend with the store knows what I think. A lot of them have what I like. I go in there and I go, yeah, this is like my store. This is dated. You need to change this. So if I open a store, I wouldn't be anything like that. But I would do a totally different business model. But if your question is more tying into the YouTube, would YouTube being a YouTube channel help me? It could, I guess. Obviously it puts you on the radar. I'd have a social media following to pursue. But in that regards, I could probably just promote anything at that point. Couldn't I? I could just be like, as you can tell, and when I make my decisions, how I keep adjusting, I'm trying to focus mostly on the YouTube platform and not so much the outside lingering monetary platforms. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Let's see. Trivial Nonsense 95 says, hey, Phil, how often do you see Tom-style bridges with a collapsing radius? Recently got a boutique 24 model where the 12-inch radius bridge has already flattened to 220. Collapsing. So what he's talking about is like the bridge sinking. So in other words, it was radiused at, I think what he's saying is 12, and it's flattened out to 20. I would say I don't have any real memories of seeing it on the regular. I would imagine it happens if the bridge is too soft. A lot of the bridges are not as good built as well as others, so maybe that's a problem with it. Maybe it's stronger tension strings that can flatten it out. It's not something, because again, it's not, when I come across guitars now, they're usually new guitars, so we're focusing on how they were built, not the issues they would have, like a repair issue. When I was doing repair issues, it's a problem business. So if somebody has a problem with it, my guess is that most people that happens to, they don't notice, so they didn't bring it in to be fixed. So generally speaking, when you do repair, usually you're dealing with what they see. Sometimes like they bring it in and you find other additional problems, but I don't know if I would necessarily I can think of any time where I've noticed that problem more than maybe once or twice. And again, I always give myself a caveat for that. Like, because I could say I haven't seen it, but I've definitely probably seen it a couple times. It just didn't stick in my head as being something to think about and remember. Bruce on the coast says, hey, are strings mostly made by a few OEM suppliers, or do most of the many companies selling strings manufacture their own? When I started in this business, I was told there was only 3 string manufacturers, and they make all the strings. Everybody said that everywhere they went. Everywhere. You would go in a music store, and they would all say that everywhere they went. And it was not true. When we started the store, we had multiple accounts. We had GHS. And I know you're talking about builders versus, making the strings, but there was actually, GHS was making their strings. And then there was, D'Addario was definitely making strings. Ernie Ball was definitely making their strings. DR was definitely making their strings. Arcoco was at that time definitely making their strings. Labella, Tomastic, trying to think who else, a couple others, right? So at different accounts, and generally speaking, everybody was kind of making their own strings. Not in every case, but in most of the cases. And then over time, it kept dwindling and dwindling and dwindling down. And yes, Fender was making its strings in Ensenada in Mexico. And then one day, Fender stopped making its own strings. By the way, when Fender bought Squier was a string manufacturer. And that's why they bought them. They got all the string equipment and they were making strings. So they were making their own strings, and now D'Addario makes Fender strings. And D'Addario makes a lot of strings. Elixir doesn't make their own strings, as far as I know, and nothing's changed, but that could be a little dated because, I can only tell you up to about 2 to 3 years ago. So sometimes they OEM their strings. But yeah, there's a lot of companies now that OEM strings for a lot of companies, but there are still not quite a few, but there's still a good amount of string manufacturers out there making their own strings. So if the concern you have, and this is the answer to the question you didn't ask, but I think it's the intent of that question. Are you being duped? Am I buying? And I'm not saying you asked that, but I mean, that's really the core of a question like that, whether you realize it or not. Am I really buying the thing I'm buying? Because that's, it's your money. You worked hard for it, and you want to get the thing that you want. You're like, hey, I want to buy this brand, and I don't want to be buying the brand I just walked away from, right? Believe it or not, even if a manufacturer OEM strings for other manufacturers, they have other requirements, like in how the string is constructed, the metallurgy in it, the construction style, whether or not it's a hex core, a round core, the thickness of the wrap wire versus the thickness of the core wire, the makeup of those two wires, the wrap style, all of that stuff, right, gets factored in. And when they make strings. So what I'm getting at is, even if, let's say in theory, and not all cases, I'm just saying in theory, that D'Addario makes strings and you go, I don't want to buy D'Addario, I want to buy somebody else's strings. And you go to another manufacturer and you find out that D'Addario is making their strings, like in the case of Fender. I'm not saying this is true in the case of Fender. I'm saying it can be true with some manufacturers where you're like, I'm just buying a D'Addario string. It's not entirely true, because they could have a different specification for that wire and the string construction. And therefore, it's a different string, even if it's made by the same people. And so there you have it. If you're concerned, I can tell you that D'Addario makes their strings, so you can trust that. Ernie Ball makes their strings, so you can trust that. Stringjoy makes their strings, so you can trust that. I'm assuming, so notice how I said yes, yes, yes. These are things confirmed, yes. I assume the DR Strings is still making their strings. At least I'm still buying them from DR, because I don't believe they're made by somebody else. I think they still are. And And then I thought I heard JHS is no longer making its strings. And again, if that's not true, I don't want to spread that rumor. I'm just saying I heard that. Like I'm heard a rumor. I'm not telling you that so you can spread that rumor. I'm saying that in case somebody can mention it. Like, no, that's not true. Like I work with JHS and that's not true. That'd be really nice to know. And stuff like that. But yeah, the biggies. I stick to mostly I do use DR strings a lot. I stick to mostly Ernie Ball, D'Addario, and Stringjoy. Those are the three I use on the regular. For some of you guys love elixirs, I totally understand that because a lot of people are diehard love elixirs. I think they have one of the most loyal customer followings out there. Strings, I just don't use them because I don't use coated strings very often. So when I use coated strings, I'll use elixir. And I've tried a bunch of brands. Like some brands sent me stuff, and I even did some videos for them, and I've used those, and then I stopped getting access to those. So, I couldn't find them to buy. But I use coated strings sometimes. I think I mentioned this before, so I'll mention it right now. If I use coated strings, it's only on guitars that I don't use. The logic being, like if I have a guitar, like a perfect example, let's say I have a guitar and I know I don't pick it up very often. It's a once in a while guitar because I'm using it for something, or maybe I'm inspired to play that. I'll put coated strings on it. That way in 6 months from when I pick it up, I don't pick it up, strum it, and go, oh, these strings are dead. And now the one time I want to play it in the last half a year, it's not, so I put coated strings. So it's almost like, I can tell you right now, if you walk in the room and you pick up a guitar and you go, this coated strings, just know that means I don't play it very often. And so that's something to think about. And then this just ties in. We'll end on this note. Although I will have a last thing. I saw a question I want to grab. Perfect example was last week, this guitar, the Kiesel, was supposed to be Guitar of the Week. I had decided this guitar would be Guitar of the Week last week, and I was going to share this guitar and story with you. Instead, I didn't. I did the Ikea Caster. The reason I did that is I could not get this guitar to sound or play good. I was just picking it up, and it just was not, it was like, I don't know, something was off, like it was brittle, and I was playing it, and I just feel like I needed to change the strings to a different style of string. I have a really light gauge of strings. This is 9 to 52, and I was like, I got to put a 56. I bought a 56 for it, because I was like, okay, I got to make this thing play right. I don't know what's wrong with me. And then I picked it up again after, of course, I didn't do Guitar of the Week, and the opposite happened. All of a sudden, I was like, oh man, this thing rings. And I was like, what is going on here? And I just loved it, and it plugged it in, and it was sounding great. And the reason I'm sharing this story with you is it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. When I say sometimes I don't play guitar for a while, it's not because I have too many guitars. I don't tell my wife that. So let's not spread that rumor, right? I don't have too many guitars. But sometimes a guitar just doesn't, I don't know, man. It just doesn't do anything for me. And almost like, why did I buy this? I'll just put this away. Maybe I'll get rid of that. And then you pick it up again and it's amazing. And that's why sometimes having, a bunch of guitars is good. It's not just a placebo effect. It's not just somebody justifying crap in their head. It actually has a real function to it. I told Shauna today, I said, it's funny. I never get in my truck and go, man, this truck drives like crap today. And then the next day I get in and go, man, it drives really nice today. I don't feel that way, but guitars, I have an emotional reaction to my guitars all the time. I pick them up, strum them, and I go, just mud. What is this? I need to change the pickups in this thing. It's so bad. And I put it on the wall or I put it in the rack and then I play something else and I play that for days and things are fine. And then I go back and try that guitar again and all of a sudden it's great. So I don't know. So I love talking about that. It's like I said, my favorite subject to talk about is the emotional aspect of guitar playing more so than technical. I think technical helps you guys in making decisions, especially on YouTube, but emotional to me is the thing I'm interested in talking about. On that note, somebody asked me, do I still have a Fender Mustang amp? I do not. I have converted to the Katana. I am the house of Katana now. I am part of the Katana family. And we'll end on this funny joke, because it's not a funny joke. It's just so funny to tell you. I'd like to tell you that I love the Katana. I'm using the Katana. I don't work with Boss. I've never worked with Boss. So you guys know, Boss has never sponsored an entire video ever since the channel's going. And in fact, I've only had one conversation with Boss, and if anyone at Boss hears me tell this story, I have the email. Okay, so I'm just going to say that. I keep all my emails with everybody. I have the email. I don't think the person who sent me the email works at Boss anymore. My one and only time, and the reason I tell you that is because I talk about bias all the time, right? What's your bias? Well, here's the thing. I love the Boss Katana. I love Boss pedals. I collect Boss pedals, as you know. Not as much as I used to, but still. And this will tell you, and sometimes you're like, oh, it's probably because Boss pays him or Boss gives him free stuff. I've never had a sponsored content with Boss, and I've only had one email, and the email to this day makes me laugh, and I can't believe I'm sharing it with you. Once Boss reached out to me and asked me if I would check out a piece of Boss equipment, and I was like, sure, I'd love to. And at the time, I was taught by another YouTube channel that you always respond with, what's your budget? Because I didn't know what to say. What do you say? And so you guys know it's not about money, even though you think it is. Because sometimes companies, for some reason, if you try to be easy and like, hey, we want to send you this new pedal, you want to check it out. You're like, yeah, send it. I'll do the video. It's great. Some companies want you to charge them or have some kind of compensation thing because then it's more like a contract. They know they're going to get their video. Life is good. It just works out great. I'm not saying this is the case. I'm just saying with Boss, I'm just saying some of this is. So what I did back then, I hadn't done this in years. This is years and years ago. Years and years and years ago. So Boss reaches out and says, hey, would you like to check out this piece of gear? And I said, absolutely. I go, I'd love to. I love Boss. I collect Boss. I said all this nice stuff because that's what I do. Because I'm like, hey, let him know. Let him know I'm a true fan. You know, right? That's more motivation to work with me. And I said, sure. What's your budget? Now, keep in mind, if they would have said nothing, I'd be like, okay, send the gear out. Or if they said, hey, our budget's $300 for the video, whatever it was. At the time, I would have took whatever they said. They responded with, oh, we'd love to pay you, but we paid Rob Chapman and Mary Spender too much, and we don't have any money for the rest of the year. Oh, my goodness, lost my voice. Army trading, sir. Apparently, can't say those two names too fast. I'll lose my... They said, I don't think this is true, but I'm just telling you what the email says. Again, I have the email. They said, oh, we paid them and we don't have anything left for in our marketing contract, our marketing department for social media. And I remember thinking, wow, that hurt. I was like, you could have just said you don't have anything in your budget. You didn't have to tell me like, yeah, we picked the better channels than you. You didn't say it like that. But that's how I felt. That my way of saying is, I want you to understand when I say I like the Boss Katana, that was my only interaction with Boss, and I still love their stuff. So there. So I love the Mustang. I loved all the amps I've ever tried, and the idea that I like them, unless I said I hated them specifically. The Mustang I really liked, but for some reason I just go back to the Boss Katana. I was talking about this recently. I think the new Blackstar ID50 sounds better than the Katana. I think the Catalyst sounds better than the Katana. For some reason, I just end up back at the Katana. I think it's because it's just tried and true. It's portable. It's easy. It's great. That's my answer. All right. I hope that hope that all makes sense. Anyways, on that note, I want to let you guys go. There was a video today. We released 2 videos on the second channel. I'll put a link down below to the second channel. If you guys don't know, we have 2 channels. There's the Know Your Gear channel, which is not this one. It's the other one where you can see clips of the podcast with more context. And by the way, if you saw Guitar of the Week last week with the junk guitar, we call it the junk guitar in the title of the video, but it's called the Ikea Caster. There was some new information discovered that I shared. In fact, PB reached out and gave us the exact, not only the neck that's on that guitar, the date, who originally bought it, all kinds of stuff. You can check that out. So you can check out the second channel if you'd like to do that. I'd appreciate that. By the way, the second channel is killing it. I want to thank you all for that. It hit 600,000 views this month, almost 700,000 views, which is impressive for a channel. And it's closing up on 40,000 subscribers. I want to thank you for that. On this channel, we hit 462,000 subscribers this week, so I want to say thank you for that. Also, if you guys want to join Patreon, just keep in mind there are 3 tiers for $5. You're supporting this podcast, and I appreciate you doing that. And it means a lot to me. And if you pay for the year, you get a discount. There's a second tier that includes guitar clinics and guitar maintenance and repair clinics, all kinds of clinics. And if you do that, it is, if you want to do it for 1 month, it's $19 for the 1 month. But what we did is we raised the price the monthly per month up, but we decreased the yearly down. So instead of paying $120 for the year, now you just pay 108 or 114, something like that. It's less. So we dropped the rate. So you can check it out and support the channel that way. And then, of course, there's a top tier if you so inclined to do that. But the main 2 things we focus on is the $5 tier, supporting the podcast, and the $10 tier if you want to support the podcast and get additional repair and maintenance videos, information, and of course, live clinics where you can ask me questions specifically and we can actually go through your problem with pictures and stuff. So that is the speech. On that note, I want to thank you for your time. Till the next time, know your gear.
The Know Your Gear podcast.